It's that time. Shall we get started? Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Let's see, we've got Nicole and John, Helen, Steve, Jeff, Joe, Steve Haynes, Patricia. Do I see Bill? There's Bill. Nope. Everybody's here except Bill so far. So Debbie, does that give us a quorum?
Yes, it does, Doug.
Great, thanks. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as stated?
Doug,
Yeah.
I do have, if I could, I have two quick announcements to make under the announcement section, if that's acceptable.
That'll be fine. John, did you motion that we accept the adoption of the agenda?
Yes.
Is there a second? Thank you, Patricia. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, this will be our agenda. Under announcements, I'd like to make one quick announcement first that's not on the agenda, and that is that it's a remarkable day today, that it is Helen Worley's birthday. So happy birthday, Helen. Thanks for all you do. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Did you have another announcement, Debbie, that you wanted to add that wasn't on the agenda?
Yes, very brief. I wanted the board to be aware that Lori Thorne will be off beginning June 24th, returning to the office on June 30th. A little more in advance, Priscilla Plinkovich will be off July 12th, returning on the 19th, and Bruce Bishop off the 12th, returning on the 26th. The SRA staff will be observing the 4th of July holiday on Monday, July 5th, and that the executive session will be scheduled to begin at 4 o'clock rather than 2:45. And we will also put the staff time away from the office in an upcoming SRA this week. So everyone's aware of that, and that they'll know who to contact in their absence. Thank you, Doug. That's all I have.
Thanks, Debbie. I asked Nicole if she would like to give us a presentation of what's going on at the resort, and she kindly obliged. So also we wanted to put Nicole right at the very beginning because she has a conflict later in the course of the meeting here. So thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Doug. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Let me know if you can see the PowerPoint.
We can see it.
Great. So some of you I know, some of you I don't. So I am the general manager for Semiahmoo Resort Golf and Spa. I'm also an area manager with Columbia Hospitality. I do consulting on a couple different projects. And then I also oversee Fairhaven Village Inn, which is in Fairhaven, beautiful Bellingham, and Galloway's Cocktail Bar as well. So Semiahmoo is a passion of mine. I worked here 20 years ago as the director of catering and events for the property for 3 years. And then I moved on to Maui and other locations, ending back up at Columbia Hospitality as their vice president of human resources. I was there for 3 years before Semiahmoo joined our portfolio of properties. And I raised my hand and said, I would love to be the general manager there. So I have been here for just over 4 years now. So Semiahmoo has gone through a sordid history of multiple different management companies. It's changed hands quite a few times. And so where we're at now is we were purchased by Wright Hotels LLC out of Seattle, and in 2013. And at that time, they did a $10 million renovation focused primarily in the restaurants, as well as some FF&E around property. And we still have quite a lot of deferred maintenance from previous ownership that we're continuing to work through, some visibly that you can see and some behind the scenes that you can't. But we're continuing to work at it and bring the resort back to a really great condition. From a positioning standpoint, I want to make sure everybody knows that we're positioning ourselves as a 3-star casual beachside resort. And we're doing that because that's really the mix of guests that we see coming here. We attract a lot of families, a lot of groups that are looking for more of a casual type of environment where they can show up in their meetings in shorts and flip-flops before they head to the beach. And it fits with the brand that we have, as we're not a 5-star. We're not physically, structurally set to be a 5-star resort. And so the 3-star casual will allow us to continue to improve the property while attracting people. And so this is just some information about it. You know, we're looking for couples and guests, and just kind of that vibrant activity. And as most of you who've been down here have seen, we're starting to pick back up as far as business goes. Just for your information, as far as the mix of business that we see within the resort, about 34% of our revenue comes from our food and beverage operations. About 42% is from food and beverage, and 34% is from the guest rooms piece of it. And then 10% from golf operations, 5% from the spa, 2% from the health club, and about 3% from recreation. And we are seeing a change in this mix as COVID has hit us and really taken away our group business. We've seen a lot more transient families and travelers come to visit the resort. And so we're still trying to build back that group business. And we have our first large group coming in next week, which is for 4 days. It's an association group, which is very exciting for us, arriving on a Sunday and checking out on a Thursday, which is perfect for us. And then I just thought it would be interesting to show the revenue. So the first column you see here is from 2019, which was really a great year at the resort. And then COVID hit, and we saw almost a 55% decline in all of our revenue streams. And really, Semiahmoo was poised to come back better than a lot of locations because of our destination and our wide open spaces. So we fared better than many of the city properties that you would see. And in 2021, we're starting to see gains again. And we're going to be hopefully at about 80% of revenue compared to 2019 in our recovery, looking to get back to 2019 levels by 2022 or 2023. We're still going to see, you know, the Canadian border is definitely impacting us from a golf perspective and those key Canadian holidays as well. But hopefully we'll get an announcement soon opening those borders up. And then just getting that group business to come back. We are looking at a very, very busy summer for sure. And that's allowing us to charge higher than normal rates as people are looking to get away and you know, have that demand is great for us as well. So that's just kind of an update on the resort. And then I thought I would just take any questions anybody might have.
Nicole?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
So out of curiosity, with the relaxing of COVID guidelines right now, and to some degree in Washington State, has that impacted you guys significantly from how people interact at the hotel?
So we made the change to, if you are vaccinated, you can remove your mask. And so we're starting, you know, seeing different levels of comfort as far as that goes, but we are starting to see people engage a bit more. The group business, this is a teachers association coming. And so it's exciting to see that they don't necessarily need to be as socially distanced in the meeting rooms. So we are starting to see changes. And in food and beverage, particularly the number of chairs in the restaurants still at 50% capacity. So we imagine on June 30th, if not sooner, that will go back and we'll be able to add some more tables into the restaurants.
Okay, so that's good, because I know your slides, I think, were based on revenue comparisons to 19. So from a people perspective, it might be a little bit less, but it's made up by more revenue per person who's at the hotel.
For sure, yeah. Okay. Definitely, yep. And yeah, our room rates are higher than 2019, and that's consistent with pretty much every hotel across Whatcom County and across the nation. As people are doing more drive destinations, it's creating demand where we can put a little more rate and get that. And then the other thing I was going to share was just from a staffing perspective. When COVID hit, we laid off about 180 of our seasoned team members. We've slowly brought people back, but a lot of the workforce in hospitality, just due to the length of the time that this has taken, have left the industry and moved into other industries. And so we're about 10 positions short of fully staffed for the summer right now. And our mix is 40% is seasoned and 60% is new hires. So you're going to see a lot of new people. It's wonderful. We have some of our members' kids that are working for us, which is fantastic. But you're going to see a lot of new faces, and you might experience some service hiccups because we're just doing lots of training and trying to get people up to speed.
And Nicole, I had a question. What are some of the major projects or initiatives that you have that you're working on now?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different capital projects going on. Let's see here. We're fixing the steam generators that are in the steam rooms, in the locker rooms at the resort. They're original steam generators, and they don't make parts for them anymore. So we had to source those. That was about $12,000 to get those pieces of equipment. We're in partnership with the pickleball players to paint all of the outdoor courts at the resort to pickleball courts with new nets. So that'll be ready for this summer. We've purchased quite a lot of banquet furniture, tables, chairs, Schaefer's, etc. But unfortunately, as group business comes back, all of those vendors are impacted. And so everything's been back ordered and won't be arriving for quite some time. We've purchased outdoor furniture for the resort, very similar. It's all back ordered and won't arrive on time. We're going to be starting the 3-year replacement of the roof at the resort. It's an original roof. And so that's a 3-year project. And then we're finishing up the repair of the deck that's outside of Packers. It's part of the original pier from back in the cannery days. That's been a 3-year project. This is the final year. And that's been about an $800,000 project for us. So this year we have, about 1.3 million dedicated to capital between the golf course and the resort. If I could get 20 million, I could spend all of it. Joe?
So Nicole, one of the things that we're trying to do as the board this year is reach out to some of the community members, of which Semi-Amur Resort and Golf Course is a significant community member because you pay the most significant amount of dues to the SRA. So one of the things I'd like to ask you, is there anything that we as the SRA can do for you in order to help you do things, or something for the resort, the golf course, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's, we're all in this together for sure. And so it's leveraging that partnership and making sure that we're all working together. We're obviously supported by the drive of people coming to visit the resort. And so part of that reputation comes from the community and how they interact on the property with residents and members. And so continuing to just, I think, you know, get excited when we have groups here, when we have people visiting the health club, that we're just welcoming them to our community is a big help on that. And then I think it's just, you know, finding those opportunities where we can collaborate together, whether it's in marketing or landscaping, etc., is great. And then anything that, like any questions you have about the resort, just feeling free to reach out to me directly about what we're doing, or if you have questions on why we pick projects the way we do, etc.
Thank you, and I hope it all goes well and this season turns out to be as good as you hope it's going to be, because that'll benefit all of us.
Yeah, I mean, if the supply chain wouldn't be so disruptive, or food prices wouldn't be increasing so significantly. And then, you know, I think just everybody's re-entry into society and normal operations, we're seeing just a heightened sense of frustration from people. And I think, you know, everybody wants to get back to normal. And that's, you know, it's just going to be a new normal. But remembering that people that are working in positions have been going through it as well. And so, you know, and losing, you know, over 50% of your seasoned staff is hard too. So I think just, I would ask, give us grace. Certainly let me know if you have any service challenges, and know that we're just working on training and we're rebuilding our team here at the resort and at the golf course as well.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have one question. I guess Nicole can't see me. I'm glad to hear your business is coming back. That's very good news. I was just curious if you track what brings people to the hotel. Is it the beach? Is it the golf? You know, what is it that's bringing people here? And do you see that changing going forward?
Yeah, so it's definitely the move to driving destinations. So the fact that people are hesitant to fly to vacation destinations, they're looking for things within 2 to 3 hours driving distance. We fit that bill very well, and we're getting people from King County majority, and then we're starting to see people from Tacoma, Gig Harbor, the peninsula. And it's the beach for sure. It's the getting away from city and congestion and getting out to something where they have kind of wide open spaces. We don't see as much in golf. They love our outdoor pool. That's probably one of the most popular things. And then just, yeah, just the beach and walking destinations for sure.
And just a quick follow on, you were saying you're attracting from King County and so on. What percentage of your business in the past has been Canadian business? And do you expect that to be about the same going forward once the borders?
Yeah, it's really about the 8 to 10% is Canadian. Yeah, we definitely anticipate that picking back up when the border opens. What I would say is we're filling up our weekends farther out than we ever have before. So I'm not sure Canadians will actually have space to get in on the weekends this summer, which is not a bad problem to have for us. But we do definitely miss them, and we see them on those Canadian holidays that they have almost every month, which is awesome. So, and then I know from a golf perspective, we're very anxious to see all of our Canadian friends there as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, thank you very much for taking time to put that together for us. And,
of course.
We really appreciate it, and wish the resort great business over the summer. This is your time to shine, so good luck.
Definitely. Excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Debbie, you had mentioned that there is a request to move the meeting from July 15th to July 27th or 22nd?
That is correct. July 1st falls on a Thursday, and so it kind of took a week away from us, and for preparing materials and such, if the board was agreeable, we were making that request.
Is there a motion to move the meeting to the following week? Joe?
I'd like to make a motion to move the meeting from Thursday, the 15th of July to Thursday, the 22nd of July.
Is there a second? Thanks, Bill. It's been moved in second. Any discussion, any opposition to doing that? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Raise your hand. Any opposition? Raise your hand. Steve, you can't. Are you not available?
I'll be climbing a mountain. So.
Okay. Well, we'll miss you. All right. Motion to approve. Helen?
Thank you. This is part 1 of 2, and I'm going to begin it in this room, and then I'm going to go in with our candidate to Debbie's office. And yes,
Helen, before we do that, let's. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you.
That's okay.
I thought that was that. Sorry.
Steve, is there a second? Okay, Steve and Steve. All in favor? Any opposition? Okay. All right, now, Helen.
Thank you. I see I've got a year older, all sorts of stuff goes wrong. You've got in your package a report from the Elections Committee that details out that in December of 2020, the Board of Directors, after legal review, approved an amendment to the bylaw 4.4 about the filling of a vacancy. And 4.4.5 called for the person to be on the board until the following AGM. And then last month, everybody, look, well, just a second, our directors do not begin serving their term until January 1st. That's been the practice at the SRA. Many others do it differently, but that's how we do it. So we said, okay, then let's amend it so that it's all consistent, and so the newly elected would be on until the end of the calendar year. However, it was pointed out by a member that the board, any change in the term of office required a vote of the entire membership and could not be undertaken by the board itself. And we discussed this with legal counsel, who apologized profusely for their oversight in approving the December and by extension May amendments. And you have in front of you, but I'll read it because maybe it's on a different screen for you. Legal counsel recommends a motion as follows: repeal the revisions to section 4.4 bracket 5, which were adopted at the December 10, 2020 board meeting, and repeal the revisions to section 4.4 bracket 5, which were adopted at the May 21st, 2021 board meeting. That will be the motion I'm going to ask somebody to make. And the effect of that is to restore 4.4 to the original language, and the original meaning where the appointed director serves the balance of the unexpired term. And this is, and I'm reading from what council said, this motion need not go to the membership because technically speaking, the board lacked the authority on its own to change the term of the appointed director. So it is pulling back from that and restoring what was the practice. And I would invite a motion to that effect, Mr. Chairman, if you would ask people for that.
Would someone like to propose that that motion?
Don't be shy.
John, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Steve. Now, Helen, so that we're clear, 4.4 will remain as it is with just the elimination of subparagraph 5, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So as it was amended, less that subsection 5.
Correct.
And then it also then eliminates that May change of extending the term from the AGM to the end of the year. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there any discussion? Joe?
So I guess one of the things that needs to occur, perhaps in this meeting, perhaps some other time, is there has to be a definition about which positions that came onto the board this year, including the one that's happening in the next few minutes, is for the duration of this year, and which is going to be for next year. Because I believe there, by my count, and I could be wrong, that there should be 5 positions up for election in this coming year, and 4 of them are in place until the end of 2022.
Joe, you are quite correct. Steve Haynes, who at one point thought he was going to get away with something then just till December, but he's until 2022. The director elected today is in that term that will be filled, concludes in 2022. There are 5 up for election at the upcoming annual general meeting and you are one.
So going forward, if there are any open positions, I guess when we put it out to the residents for open positions, it needs to be very clear that the position ends on X date or Y date.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. Yes.
So I would like to just thank April for bringing it to our attention and for being on point and astute on that. So thank you, April. Any other discussion before we? Okay, let's all in favor say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Anyone that's opposed? Okay, that passes. So we will follow up at the AGM then with the changes that we had originally intended.
Yeah, we'll make sure that everything is very, very clear. Yes.
Terrific. Continue, Helen.
Okay, for part 2, I'm moving and I'm taking our candidate with me. We're going into Debbie's office. We'll be back in a minute.
I got to see all one up for you. What you do? Maybe you and I'm going to be asking first. What do you like to present some stuff first? I can stand up or I can be here. You want me to? You sit there and I'll just move this chair around. Put the other there now. How about that? Can you pull this chair? Here. Yeah.
You'll have to unmute, Helen.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay. One candidate, one member applied to fill the vacancy that was caused by Alex's departure from the board. And we get into legal stuff again. Whereas the bylaw states the board shall immediately request the elections committee to submit not less than 1 nominee more than the number of vacancies to be filled, that the council has advised that an election may still proceed even though we have only 1 candidate, because he termed that phrase an aspirational one, aspirational in nature, not an absolute requirement. There is nothing that actually says you can't have an election if you don't do it. So that's why we're able to proceed with one candidate. And with the repeal of 4.4.5, the candidate will serve to complete the unexpired term of the vacant position. And in this situation, it is, Joe, you note, December 31st, 2022. And the candidate in question has been made aware of this and has accepted it. Yes. And of course, the candidate is Jane Moore. And you have all received her biography, and I think many of you already know her.
Yes.
But just in case, could you just go around, maybe starting with you, Nicole? I'm looking at my screen, and just say, this is Jane, and let her know who everybody is.
Hi, Jane. This is Nicole Newton. I'm the general manager at Semiahmoo Resort Golf and Spa. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Jane, Steve Haynes, thanks for saying yes.
Don't be shy.
You know me, Jane.
Oh yeah, I know.
Really appreciate you taking us up on our offer.
You're most welcome.
Hey, Jane. John, down the street.
Hi, John.
Hi, Jane. Patricia, it's here. Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, Jane. This is Steve Geisel. It's good to see you again.
Likewise.
Hi, Jane. Jeff Ferry. Good to see you.
Hi, Jane. Joe Sothi, welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And
Jane, Bill McNally.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Bill.
Thanks, everyone. Now, we know we only have one candidate, but in chatting with the president, also with the election committee, and knowing we have members of the association who are out there who may not know Jane, we thought it would be a good idea to follow the process we did last time, where we asked some questions and you guys get to do some follow-up. Jane will make a little presentation first, about 3 minutes, and then we've got 7 minutes for the questions, and then you get to wrap for one. So Jane, over to you.
Great, thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jane Moore. I'm a resident of Semiahmoo Shore community. I moved there in September of 2019. I'm a native Northwest. I'm thrilled to be living in our beautiful community. We have a beautiful home on Drayton Harbor where we enjoy the marina, the resort, walking paths, and the spectacular view of Mount Baker. It's really quite lovely. Previously, I lived in downtown Bellevue in one of the high-rise condominiums. I moved there after I sold my home in Sammamish in 2017. I lived in Sammamish for 15 years in a master plan community similar to what we have here in Semiahmoo. Professionally, I've been a senior executive administrator for over 30 years. Spent 15 years at Nordstrom, supporting the chairman, president, and I moved over to Microsoft and spent 17 years there, mainly supporting the COO, which was the #2 at Microsoft. The COO was responsible essentially for half the company, sales, marketing, services, operations, IT. The scale and breadth of the role was extremely rewarding while consuming. I retired from Microsoft in 2018. If elected, my commitment would be to work cohesively with the board and community to ensure we are fiscally responsible and develop a strong operational muscle for a stable tomorrow. I welcome the opportunity to serve and add value to our beautiful community. So thank you.
Thank you. And there are just a few of the questions. These are questions, by the way, that the board came up with when we did this last time.
Okay.
So, you know, I didn't dream these up. So why did you volunteer?
I volunteered. Okay.
Yeah, how's your arm?
some Snickers in there. I volunteered really for a couple reasons. But one, I think it's important to give back to my community. I feel very strongly about that. And then I feel that my professional skill set could be utilized here. I've listened to a lot of the board calls, and the more I listened, the more I felt like I needed to insert myself. And so I am a part of the governance committee, and I also sit on the Semiahmoo Shore NHOA.
Right. So you know this community.
Well, I'm getting to know it, you could say.
What was your best volunteer experience?
Oh, my best volunteer experience. I knew you were going to ask me.
Yeah, I know.
I've done my homework. My best volunteer, and I kind of actually had a couple, but when I reflected, my best volunteer was being a scorekeeper for Little League Baseball.
Oh,
and I have two boys close in age, and my husband coached Little League Baseball for 7 years. And so I was the scorekeeper, and we had great fun, you know, ups and downs of a team, young kids, and achievements. And it's just actually very, very rewarding, especially as you look back on your life and you see where the kids are at today and the impact that you have. It's just really a lifetime of very, very fun memories.
That's terrific. And I'm a baseball fan, so I love it. Yeah. I think it's absolutely fabulous. You mentioned in your statement, you know, a bit of a vision for the SRA. Do you want to expand on that just in terms of the vision of how it might be?
Well, I think there's like really two, or you could even say three. But first, I think that it is the financial, for the SRA to be fiscally responsible with sound financial processes and disciplines. And then secondly, I think it's establishing a governance platform in building an operational muscle, establishing an efficient day-to-day, month-to-month, year-by-year operating model. I think that it's critical we have this foundation. As board members come and go, a clear operational platform governed by HOA policies and the mission statement of our Semiahmoo community is the North Star. Yeah. So we all want Semiahmoo to be highly regarded community in the Northwest.
We sure do.
Yeah, we do.
And how much time are you prepared to put into this?
Whatever it takes.
Oh, did you hear that?
Yeah,
whatever it takes.
You know, it's creating emotion. And I think that to build upon that. And I am a full-time resident. And so, yeah, whatever, I'm ready to jump in.
Music to everybody's ears, I expect. Does anybody who's on the board have something further that they would like to ask Jane before she does her little rap? You're not usually this shy and retiring. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Jane.
Hello.
So you said some very nice things about fiscal governance and et cetera, et cetera. Do you have, in your roles that you've had over the years, do you have any financial experience with at least taking financials? I know you were a senior administrative person, but did the people you worked with, did you prepare financial information for them or go over it with them for other groups in the company?
You know, I did profitability with Nordstrom. So running through the P&L by geo of how performance was by I have to kind of think, that was a while ago, but over, just like volume, gross margin, operating expenses, and then how they married up. In my time at Nordstrom, we did a tremendous amount of, you could say, kind of comparing regions, stores, merchants. And so I did a lot back then, definitely. Budget, I'm not so much involved in budget, but track, definitely. And of course the scale is, I think when I left it was 6.8 billion, but at a time they're just numbers, performance.
I asked because being the treasurer and you're being on the board until, the next year and a half, I look forward to interacting with one of the people who are going to be here for a while, because there's 5 of us who won't be on the board next year. So we might have a new treasurer or other people. I'd love to interact with somebody who, with continuity, so that if need be, we'll have an easier pass off from one financial person to another person who at least knows financials or might know financials as we move into next year. So welcome aboard. We're not quite 6.8 billion or even 6.8 million, but we're our own little community with a bunch of budget issues that we got to deal with.
Truly,
As you say, it's just a bunch of numbers.
True.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
You get 1 minute. Okay. If you'd like to just do a back.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you all for the opportunity to present myself, to present my skill set to the board and to the community. I'd be honored and privileged to contribute to our beautiful and uniquely situated community in this capacity. The board, I see it, that the board is comprised of many talented and devoted individuals, and needlessly to say, I'd be thrilled to work and serve with you all and the greater community. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for volunteering.
Do you want me to step out?
No, I think it's fine. No, because Ms.
Helen, you're muted.
Don't know how that happened.
Sorry about that. That was me. I got confused when I was looking for where noise, and I forgot that you were on Debbie's computer.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, Lori is ready with the election runner. I believe you sent emails to everybody, did you, Lori?
Those emails should have gone out at 2 o'clock from noreply@electionrunner.com. If you're a director and you do not find it immediately, please check your spam or let me know if you don't see that email in your inbox.
And you can just vote, and I will go out and find out the results from Debbie and come back and announce them. We're just okay. Okay, we'll do it. You can see, and then we can adjourn to the other room.
Sorry, I was talking with mute on. Didn't realize it. While we wait for the those results, why don't we go ahead with the open forum? I think that there was 1 or 2 people that had actually signed up to speak. So, are you back, Helen?
I'm back, and this was a very tightly contested election, and I'm delighted to tell you that Jane Moore is now a member of the board of directors of the SRA, and we're going to cross over to the conference room, and Jane is going to sign the code of conduct, and you will then be official. Welcome.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
Before you do that, though, Jane, it's really a pleasure to have you, and we appreciate you stepping up and joining the board. So we look forward to working with you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Dad. Okay.
Okay. Now we'll go forward with the open forum. Let's see. I see Debbie and Lori are both muted.
I actually don't have anybody that has stepped forward and indicated that they wish to speak on open forum.
Okay. That's terrific. Then let's move on. Debbie, do you want to give us your executive director report?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Doug. Okay, the audit continues to be underway. I had requested an update from Jay Vandel's office. They said they would get one to me as quickly as they could. They were having some staffing issues, and unfortunately, I don't have any further updates other than the audit is still underway. Moving to the Carnoustie bioswale contracting, the bids are due on June 23rd, and the goal is to award the contract by June 30th. And Bruce Bishop and I have been in contact with the owner of the property and keeping them apprised of the process, and he is comfortable with that. And then the maintenance report is more detailed. I'm hopeful that everyone had an opportunity to review that in your meeting packet. Bruce and I had a meeting with the co-chairs of the maintenance, soon to be fully chartered maintenance committee yesterday, being Bill McNally and John Palin. And I'd like to go through this report. We're going to kind of keep it at the 30,000 foot level, and with more information to come. So starting with the work plan, as it states, that is approximately 35% complete. And Bruce is in the process of developing the 5-year plans for the operations budget. On the street sweeper.
Hey, Debbie, let me just ask a question on the maintenance work plan. When you say that it's 35% complete, what does that mean?
Bruce and I are going to tag team here. So Bruce, if you'd like to give an explanation on that, please, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, Doug, I've identified almost everything that I need to as far as what I think is our responsibility. I'm down to the things like roundabouts in the various NOHAs that we maintain. Once those are identified, then the real work starts. That's coming up with the hours it takes to maintain those areas.
And this is a focused plan that rolls into 2022, and how much of it is focused on the remainder of 2021?
Doug, it's not focused on a particular year. It's focused over a full year of activity that it takes to maintain the SRA. It will move forward. If you were to not have an asset continue on, that would drop out of the plan. Best way I could explain it, it's a schedule of the labor that it takes to maintain the assets. Is that helping?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving along to the street sweeper. We have hired a part-time employee to sweep using the SRA sweeper. And that right now we're planning on doing that on the last week of the month on Monday and Tuesday. This gentleman also has maintenance skills to work on the sweeper. And then a long-term analysis will be performed on whether we continue on that route or if we sell the sweeper and go back to contracting. So again, we're basically addressing this at about the 30,000 foot level right now. Next, I mentioned the Carnoustie bioswale previously. On curbs and gutters, this is a carryover from last year, and so we'll be signing the contract to get two primary locations addressed. And as noted, the repair on Pintail Loop, that they have to investigate why did it fail. So yes, Joe.
For the street sweeper, sorry, I'm going back an item. Can you let us know, so there's been conjecture over the last number of months whether the street sweeper is actually in good condition, bad condition, where a past board member has said it always had to be maintained on a regular basis. There was as much time being maintained as there was being the streets being swept. Can you clarify or confirm that that is the case or is not the case?
Bruce had the sweeper professionally reviewed by I believe it was Motor Trucks, and they found a few minor issues. The gentleman who will be joining us on a part-time basis, his name is Leroy, and Leroy has also looked at the machine and found it to be sound. And so we are going on the premise that it is sound and ready to go.
So it should be an asset if we choose to use it, that is very usable without much in the way of maintenance costs. And or if we choose to go the other route, which is sell it, we should be able to get a reasonable amount of money for it because it's in pretty good condition. Is that a valid statement?
I believe so, yes, Joe.
Okay, great, thank you.
According to the Public Works Director for Blaine, whom Leroy reported, he mentioned that that street sweeper is the same street sweeper they use in Blaine, perhaps a different model, but very similar. And Leroy did all the maintenance work on that since they've had it. And according to both of them, it's a very serviceable machine, and he has access to secondary market products that support the sweeper at a fraction of the cost of what it costs to get it from the actual manufacturer, and says that it's a very serviceable, good machine. So I think that that's all good news for us.
Great. Then what I'd like to do is just say a public attaboy to the previous board about 2-3 years ago who acquired it, and they said they did some pretty good diligence on it, because it sounds like it's a machine that we can use for the future as long as we have a driver and a maintainer for it, as opposed to what we've heard over the last 6 or 12 months, where it's a royal pain in the butt. But anyways, onwards, forward.
We've got our positive hat on, Joe. So, okay. Moving to, we're removing the NHOA from entry sign 5-year plan. So it'll just be entry sign 5-year plan. And as Bruce states, it's 55% complete with the initial replacement locations have been identified. So he'll continue to work on that. That's a very important item in the community. So it is a priority. Next, we're removing NHOA again, and it'll be entry automated gates, 5-year plan, and that is 80% complete, and was presented to the maintenance committee. And so there'll be more work once the maintenance committee is fully seated, and we'll be working closely with them on that plan. Moving to the operations 22 maintenance budget, the initial draft is detailing the maintenance operations has been generated, and Bruce will be presenting that to Joe here very shortly. And the street maintenance plan, we appreciate the information that Dave Whitmore had provided to us, and that will be integrated into the maintenance plan. And we will be talking with an individual about the different aspects of street maintenance, and then hopefully in conjunction working with the maintenance committee, looking to find the proper individual that will actually be able to do an assessment and give us a long range of locations year by year as to when they should be maintained, and try to get some accurate pricing on that. The stormwater maintenance plan, as Bruce said, had a brief meeting with the city of Blaine, and we're looking to integrate SRA stormwater configuration with the city's local, area stormwater system. And Ken Johns has been extremely helpful in this aspect, and I believe that he is still willing to help us with that. The reserve study, we received the questionnaire from the reserve company, so that's something that Bruce and I will be working on, and also keeping the maintenance committee involved in that process. And then the department, we are sad to say we've lost 2 key employees to higher paying jobs. And that one employee left last week. That was Joe Christina. And then Nikolai Fredericks left this week. Thus, we are very shorthanded, and Bruce is diligently seeking to replace at least Joe's position. And then while we look to how we're going to conduct the maintenance, future employees will be determined, and we will be working with the proper board members on that. And in the past, the SRA did not have a safety program in place that was compliant with WISHA, the Washington Industrial Safety and Health Act. Bruce has a network beyond belief, and has reached out to some folks that we had attended our staff meeting a week ago Tuesday, and they're putting a questionnaire together, and then we'll be looking at getting a program in place at a fairly minimal cost, but we will keep, again, the proper board members apprised of that. And lastly, Bruce, again, with his networking, Elite Landscaping, and they have given us a proposal to come in and do a basic overhaul of the entrances. So we're not having the tunnel effect with overgrowth of shrubs, trees, and otherwise. And that will be at all the neighborhood entrances. And they have made a commitment to begin that process next Tuesday, the 22nd. That'll last approximately 2 weeks. And when they finish, they'll apply bark mulch, and then the SRA staff will plant additional flowers. And so we're very excited to bring the entrances up to a better appearance for the community.
Steve?
Debbie, it sounds like we may have a pay scale problem in the maintenance department. What are we doing to look into that?
Bruce and I are looking into that very seriously, and looking to bring that to a wage that will keep our employees here, because everyone knows that training and such is very expensive, and to have continual turnover is not a good situation for the association. So that is something that we are seriously looking at.
Debbie, how much were they being paid? Was it an hourly rate?
Yes.
How much was it?
Let's see, one was 17 and the other was 20. And those were first matching to match skill sets.
But does that start, that one with the 20 was probably not 20 when he started?
Due to this, he was actually a former employee that came back, and then his former employer offered more with better benefits, and he decided to go back. So that was kind of a unique situation there. All right, moving on. I had mentioned Ken in the stormwater report. Ken did give me his letter of resignation as construction compliance consultant. And he did the 30-day notice, which was required in the agreement. And so his last day is July 9th. And we have been, joint partners had started a new agreement for this position, which was much more detailed than the one we currently have. And I thank Crescinda and Steve for their input on that. And Joe, I want to talk with you about that as it pertains to what we talked about with the need for legal review or not. But this is a very, very unique position. Ken worked part-time or on an as-needed basis, and it was very much appreciated by the association. Ken being a resident as well, he made himself available at basically any time that he was needed. And so these are big shoes to fill and very important, and everyone keeping in mind that there is going to be a learning curve for this person to understand all the neighborhood CC&Rs, RCC&Rs and such. Again, I can't thank Ken enough for the 3 years that he served in that position. Let's see.
Debbie?
Yes, Joe.
Do you know if, so one of the discussions I've had with many members on the board and others in the community over the last little while since I've been on the board is that there are many people in the community who have lots of different skills. So since we do a regular mail out on a weekly basis and on a monthly basis, do you think that similar to Ken living in our community, we could send something out, since it's a part-time type of consulting gig, that we might be looking for someone in the community who can help, as opposed to going through Indeed or other recruiting sites?
Joe, I think that's, as we're thinking of ways to fill this position, I think it would be beneficial if I could send you the agreement right now and let you take a look at that, and that's something that you and I can look over. It does require more licensed, insured, bonded, contracting license, and so on. So it's a little more detailed, and so I don't have a definite answer for that at this moment.
Did Ken have any of those particular skills or no? Or I should say licenses, etc.
The blanket purchase order that we had for him when he began in 2017 did not entail those. Yeah.
$20 an hour. Then part of me wonders whether, because I know there was an RFP with all kinds of stuff done for the finance position, which was basically substantial overkill. So I'm wondering if the potential RFP or job description, whatever you might want to call it, for the compliance consultant might be somewhat overkill as well. I don't know. That's just a guess.
Steve?
Joe, the regulations are continuously getting more stringent. Stormwater is the latest big thing. We are entirely dependent on the compliance consultant for the professional expertise to be sure that what's happening doesn't put the SRA at risk. So we are, in my opinion, vastly under-describing the position in the past. And it's worth looking at. But we got to be sure we get the expertise we need.
I'm totally fine with whatever the recommendation is, Steve. And if we need to do what we need to do, but we also, if we need to get somebody with more bonding, with more licensing, etc., I'm certainly imagining that the costs associated with new construction or with significant construction after the fact, renovations, call it whatever you might, will probably need to increase if we're increasing the costs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it should be cost neutral to the SRA because we charge for the service.
Yep, that's fine, no problem.
Okay, with that, Doug, I have completed my report. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Debbie? Okay, we'll need the next one. Joe, treasury report.
Certainly. So in the mind of move.
Oh, hey, Joe, hold
Jeff.
on just one second. Jeff?
Yep.
Sorry, Joe. Doug didn't see me. On the maintenance thing, I think we need to have is we need to figure out, what is the right size of the maintenance team. And it should be based on the work that needs to be done. So you start with the work that needs to be done, and then you figure out how many people you need to do it. And we have an opportunity now with the situation that developed to actually staff that department, if you will, appropriately. Do we contract out for various parts of the work? Do we in-house everything? What's the right staffing requirement? So I think this is actually an opportunity to actually do something we should have done before.
Bruce?
Yeah, and that goes back to Doug's question about the work program that's being developed. That's the purpose of it, is to define what the staffing needs are. And then from that, you can define, like in the summertime, you hire temporaries versus trying to man up for the whole year and have people you don't need. And that's got to become a priority, but we need to get through a few other things first.
Okay, Joe, proceed.
Just to keep things short, so I've got 5 pages in the information package to the board. The first page is actuals from the beginning of 2021 until the end of May. The second page is the forecast for all of 2021 compared to the plan for all of 2021. The third page is the forecast for 2021 compared to the last 4 years of actual. So you can see on an ongoing basis what we've spent in the past compared to what we look like we're spending and bringing in revenue in this year. The fourth page is the plan for the reserve budget compared to the current forecast for the reserve budget. And that is largely the same as it was last month. And the fifth page is the balance sheet at the end of May compared to the balance sheet to the end of May in 2020. At the bottom of each page, except for the balance sheet, I've got a few notes that saying the significant reasons, if any, for any changes against either the plan or past years or whatever the period might be. Did anyone look at this, and does anyone have any questions? In summary, for the people who are on the call who don't have this package of information, for the year to date, we are currently about, when I say to date, I mean to the end of May, we are currently about $133,000 to the better. The two main reasons are we had the $55,000 loan that was given for the PPP, that it was canceled or it was forgiven. And so that was a $55,000 benefit for our association. We anticipated that might happen coming into the year, but we didn't know if it was going to happen until it actually occurred. The other deviation is, of significance, is there was the difference between how personnel was being planned versus how it's being expended throughout the year. Seems kind of weird or an odd way to say it, but we've got a savings of about 40 grand there. There's a couple of other $10,000 items which aren't significant, but we're in a beneficial position for the year to date. For the forecast for the year, it's looking like we're going to be about $100,000 better than the original plan for the year. In the operating fund, the original operating fund was looking like it in the plan at a deficit of 111,000. Right now, it's looking like a deficit of somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000. I want to let you know that Bruce and Debbie brought forward to me this potential $13,000 consulting cost for doing the entrances a couple of days ago. So I was able to include that extra $13,000 in the budget. But at the same time, I knew that there were a couple of our maintenance people who were not going to be on staff for a month or two because they've already left. So we're going to get a savings of a couple of months or a month or a few weeks of them. Those largely offset, but that's incorporated and not additional.
So Joe, just
yes,
just correction. It wasn't really a consulting contract so much as it's a maintenance contract, correct?
So sorry, it's the maintenance contract for the next about 30 days for the gates, correct?
Yeah.
A maintenance consult, yes.
Just to clarify.
That is incorporated into my forecast right now, and it's not additional to what we're going to spend.
John, did you have a question?
More of a comment. I just wanted to acknowledge the really great work you're doing, Joe, and thank you for your focus on this. It's really making a difference. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Anybody else with any comments, questions, thoughts? I've got notes at the bottom of the spreadsheet that says differences or deviations and explanations. Any comments on any of that stuff before I move on to some of the other items that are non-financial?
Joe?
Yes?
I just, and I glanced over it. I didn't, you know, I look at it super carefully, but on the street sweeper, could you just update us on that? Because I know we were going to outsource that. And I don't know if we'd already forward contracted with this Whirlybird or whoever they were. And then in light of this recent development with this Leroy, how that may impact, was anything, you know, were you forecasting expenses related to that in the budget?
So what I had done last month when what I'd done last month is I had forecast that we were going to do either 1 or 2 street sweeps a month with the company that we were contracted, who did one last month. And that was at about $1,500 a pop. So there was $1,500 or $3,000 that I put in the budget last month. I've still got it this month because as of a couple of days ago, I was told that the discussion with Leroy or using the sweeper was still in process and not confirmed. So I'm still leaving those contracted services for the Whirlybird guys in the plan, but I believe the contract, and I think Debbie will tell me if I'm wrong, allows us to be able to cancel any future services as long as we give 30 days notice in advance. And we're only contracted to do 4 times in a year. So I think we're okay with not owing them any more money other than the one time that they street cleaned. So now for the next one, now that I believe we're confirming to be working with Leroy, I will update with whatever we're going to be paying Leroy to do maintenance and street sweeping services, as well as what it'll cost for maintenance on our street sweeper, which is how we had forecasted in at the beginning of the year. Does that attempt to answer your question?
That's fine. It's just how we had forward sort of forecasted that expense, and now in light of the new development. So it's small monies in the bigger picture, but if we're getting close to the 8,000 differential, then all those thousands add up.
So I believe that for my forecast in the budget for street sweeping, I've got somewhere around 12 grand plus or minus between now and the end of the year. I'm thinking what's going to cost us less in the wages or services that we pay for Leroy for both sweeping and maintenance, as well as contract on the street sweep or maintenance on the street sweeper that would be necessary. But I don't know for sure because there's also dumping charges, etc.
Fair enough. Thanks, Joe.
John, did you have another question?
No, I'll withdraw my hand. Thank you.
Okay. Continue, Joe.
So if there's no more questions or comments on financial statements, the RFP for financial services, I had mentioned last month that I thought that we might be able to get someone in place for the end of June. What I'm choosing to do, and this is me choosing to do it, I'm going to continue to manage our financial statements because the process of being the accountant on site is a little bit more than just doing accounting. It's mostly about budgeting forward. And I know people who have skills in doing accounting do not necessarily, I've always equated this, and people have said there's an art to doing financials and there's a science to doing financials. So the science or whatever is the accounting part. The art is doing the forecasting and budgeting part. Considering that we need a skill right now more to do the budgeting through the rest of this year and the budgeting process for 2022 that we're going to be bringing to the town hall in a couple of months or a month and a half or so. In addition to the, I believe the town hall before I got on the board had a 1, 3, and 5 year plan that we've got to do. That's going to be much more in depth than someone who we can hire to do bookkeeping can do. So I'm gonna keep doing this, the accounting work for the association for the next month or two, which will be another savings. As I think I've mentioned in the past, there is $5,000 or $6,000 in the budget each and every month, which we're not incurring because I'm doing it, which is fine. And then once we get to the point where we're back to doing more bookkeeping, which will be closer to the AGM, then we will find somebody in place to do it. I'm saying this, but I don't know if you guys have any comments, questions, thoughts, if that's a problem. Nothing at this moment? Okay, then I'll move on. CIT Bank banking. So we had a couple of glitches in getting authorized signatures with the bank completed. We got that completed about a week and a half ago. So now we have appropriate authorizations with CIT Bank. We've been using them in a very limited sense. The only activity that's happening through CIT Bank right now is payroll. All other expense checks are happening through our myriad of other banks and bank accounts. I'm hoping now that we solved the authorizations for approval just a week and a half ago that we're going to be able to move forward so that in July, for sure, we will move all of our banking over to CIT Bank. So a couple of big things. The biggest one was what we were hoping to do with CIT Bank regarding the residents paying their dues was instead of us collect, about half of our dues are collected by direct payment that goes into the bank account directly for the SRA. The other approximately half is received by checks in dribs and drabs, some of it in the first month, some of it in the second month, some of it even in the third month after billing occurs. And that becomes much more cumbersome because they're all bundled up, that, you know, photocopies of checks are taken, they're taken to individual banks. What we were hoping to do, what we had talks to do was CIT Bank has a portal available for each individual resident to go onto that portal, sign in, and say they'll be identified as resident 12345 or whatever their ID is. And then they will be able to make a payment directly in that portal. They will make a choice as to whether it's a debit card, a credit card, a direct bank payment, or an e-bank payment like lots of us are familiar with, or even one or two other methods of payment. And we, as the SRA, will not be holding any of the bank information associated with the residents. There was also a hope, but that's now moved to 2022, that we would be able to give them all of the bank account information that we currently hold right now. And as you all know, that's a risk to the residents who have the bank, who have given us the accounts, that if we're hacked, then they have, or someone who hacks us has the bank account information that residents have provided to us. If we give it to the bank, then we don't have that risk anymore. However, because of a set of circumstances, some of it being we're not able to do it or we don't have enough time for training or whatever, we're just going to do the same method that we were doing at the beginning of this year, which will probably mean about half the revenue comes in on one day And then about half the revenue comes in dribs and drabs from about 400 checks from various residents that we manually put in and whatever. What I'm trying to do is figure out how do we get rid of the make work stuff and make it more productive work. But we're not quite there yet. Unfortunately, it'll be in 2022 that we carry that torch. The other thing with CIT banking is the term loan. So D on the agenda is we currently have a term loan with North Coast Credit Union in the amount of about $710,000 outstanding right now. It's at 5%. I've negotiated with just a simple request to CIT Bank, is it possible to get a term loan? And they said, sure, we can give you a term loan. So they've given us paperwork, and the current rate, it's not locked in until we actually sign the paperwork, and it's based on the Fed rate plus, et cetera. The current rate would be about 4.1%. So given the fact that we've got about 700 grand outstanding, just over 700 grand outstanding, and it would be about 0.9%, we'd be saving, depending on the year, because of course the balance goes down, somewhere around $6,000 or $7,000 a year if we only replace the term loan. And that would be each and every year a little bit less. The payments, we're right now paying about $5,900 a month. The payment would go to about $5,300 a month. So that's representative of approximately $7,000 a year. It's a 15-year term, which is the same one that we've got right now. You guys last meeting gave me the approval to go forward with the application. I've had a couple of conversations because they've got an origination fee, and I'm trying to cut that in half. It's not a big origination fee, it's a couple $1,000s, but I'd like to have it be as close to zero as I can. I want the upfront cost to be as low as possible. There's also a line of credit that is available, and I'm trying to work on that to cut the upfront or origination fees as well. The origination fees are not based on the application, they're based on when they actually grant the loan. So all in, the amount that we're going to be paying for loans are going to be less as if we go with CIT sometime in the near future. The gentleman who I chat with, who's our CIT main rep, is on holiday right now. So when he comes back at the end of next week, I'm hoping to have the conversation move forward so that at the July board meeting, I can actually ask for approval to move forward with this as opposed to just the application, because I'll have all the I's dotted and T's crossed. John.
Thank you, Joe. Given the Federal Reserve announcement yesterday that they're going to probably bump up their overnight loan rates a couple of times in the next year and a half, that prompts me to ask whether this new loan, if the rate is fixed at the time of origination or if it floats.
The loan that we have right now and the loan that we would be getting with CIT Bank have a 10-year fixed, and at the end of 10 years, then they revise it because it's a 15-year loan to a 5-year fixed at that period of time. So largely it is fixed. The line of credit has a floor rate of 5%, and they also have a calculated rate based on the Fed, et cetera. The calculated rate right now, which would be applicable to what you're referring to, is 4.25%. So we still have 0.75% to go in calculated increases, which the Fed said, or they indicated would be somewhere in 2023 or whenever it might be, 2023, 2024. So we still have 0.75% to go until we actually have the floor rate that we're actually being charged at that point in time.
Thank you.
All right. And then the last thing is it says 2020 and beyond budgeting process. I think it's supposed to say 2022 and beyond budgeting process. So I had a chat with Debbie and Bruce a couple of days ago, earlier this week. And one of the things that Bruce is going to provide me, I think it was by tomorrow, is a budget for 2022, or a proposed budget by 2022. That was mentioned earlier by Debbie. What I did say is I would like to see sometime in the next couple of weeks after that, a proposed budget for the next 5 years, which includes 2022 through 2025, sometime before he goes on holiday, which is, I believe, July 12th, because we, in the last town hall sessions, said that we are going to be working on a 1, 3, and 5 year plan. And I believe that when we have the next town hall, we need to have some things buttoned up to present to residents about not necessarily dollars, but I'm talking more strategy. What are we going to be doing within the community from a maintenance perspective, which includes all of our infrastructure, never mind all of the operating types of things. And that's going to be in August, and Bruce will only be coming back in the week prior to August. So a little bit of work to do in order to figure out what's the 5 or multi-year plan that we promised the residents was going to happen in the last set of town halls.
Hey, Joe, can you just give us an overview of the budgeting process as you see it right now?
So I believe that, so what I did with Bruce and Debbie is I provided them the updated budget for 2021. That was partly the plan for 2021 that was approved at the last AGM, plus an update of what the forecasts are for the rest of 2021 on a line item basis. What he said he's going to do, and I believe he's already done a significant amount of it, is forecast based on those similar types of items and or other types of items regarding the maintenance component of our community, which other than staff and the building is the main part of our expenses. So the one thing that Bruce and Debbie are both aware of is that those components are both operating as well as capital. But when we say capital, of course, we're talking reserve funds. That could be roads, it could be vehicles, it could be all kinds of different things that are quote unquote large in amount. So for 2020, if Bruce is able to give me something and then we'll go back and forth, and by the next board meeting, we'll have to have something that we can say, does this look acceptable for 2022? Because by the next board meeting on the 22nd, we need to have something fairly concrete in place to be able to put together for the town halls that are going to happen, I believe, in a couple of them in August. And I don't believe we're going to have a board meeting prior to that after the next regular board meeting.
So do you anticipate that we will have just a work session when we have basically the comprehensive numbers pulled together so that as a board we can kind of go through and kind of figure out how we're going to get a finished product?
It could happen at the next board meeting if we have enough information. Or maybe it'd be better to have a work session that is in addition to the next board meeting, whether it's just before, whether it's just after, depending on what kind of information we get from Debbie and Bruce regarding maintenance and Debbie regarding the administrative side of our business. You know, what Jennifer had said last year, Jennifer from Joint Partners, is it's very important to do zero-based budgeting. For those who don't know budgeting, an awful lot of budgeting is based on your run rate. So for instance, well, currently we have 5, but just a week ago we had 7 staff in the SRA. We have 3 in the building, and then we have 4 on the administrative side, and we have 4 on the maintenance side. So ordinarily, all you just do is you run those forward into the next year with whatever salary increases, compensation, etc. We've got the costs of the building. Well, we know what those costs are. You run those out, and any contract types of things that are normal, you run those out. Those are all run rate costs. All the rest of the stuff you can say is zero-based budgeting based on what we need. That's one of the things that Bruce is putting together to show the kind of expenses we need in order to do maintenance in our community. To put it into perspective, this year in our maintenance or repairs and maintenance budget, we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000 out of the total of approximately $800,000 that we're spending out of ops, or a little bit more than $800,000. So roughly 10% this year. And that is not headcount or anything related. That's just spending on repairs and maintenance and that kind of stuff. That also doesn't potentially swap. If we have in the 2021 budget, we have 3 people in addition to Bruce on the maintenance side. If, as Jeff suggests, and I've had conversations as well, we might have 2 regular staff and we convert the 3rd staff to a bunch of other contracted services for specialty types of things. That'll add tens of thousands of dollars for those specialty services, whatever they might be. That would be in 2022.
Not to diminish the importance of that discussion, but what I want to do is make sure we're moving along here. But I would really encourage that we have a work session and with the board to get to that final budget before the town hall, so that we can then have something that the board is very familiar with and supportive of as we go to the town halls.
Probably then, for scheduling purposes. So if Bruce is going to be gone from the 12th of July and he comes back on the 26th, then, and our board meeting is scheduled to be on the 22nd, then from a planning perspective, we should probably wait until after Bruce comes back. So we've had a discussion at the board meeting and go through a work session with him and Debbie and the board, or any other parties that are that we need to of interest to discuss the budgets. So my guess is, based on the town halls being sometime in early August, or early and mid-August, that we want to schedule to have our first, or maybe only, working session to do with the 2022 budget sometime in the last week of July. That would be my guess as to when a good period of time is, because Bruce is here. I believe Debbie's here, unless she's going to say something different, because I don't know vacation schedules. And we are here. Most of us are going to be here. I know Steve might be off climbing or wherever he might be, but enough of us will be here to be able to give feedback and thoughts and whatever on what we're thinking of doing. And what we're going to do at the town hall, I believe, is do a proposal. This is what we're thinking of doing. So that budgeting work session will be based on what we're thinking of doing, so that we can, and it'll be, to me, it's more strategic. I'm the numbers guy, but it's strategic thinking about here's what we're thinking of doing in words, like qualitative discussions. With numbers will be placed to those, but it's more about here are the types of things that we're doing. But we'll figure those things out.
Helen?
Thanks, Doug. Joe, if I recall the timeline, having the board meeting moved back to the 22nd of July probably plays right into your game plan, because I believe that the budget comes to a draft for discussion and work by the board at the July board meeting. So that before it goes to the whole community meeting time schedule. So that kind of works in with what you're saying, Joe, and it works in with the overall timetable, which the board approved last month, which we presented from Elections Committee. Thank you.
And from a finance committee standpoint, we are planning on meeting next week. I haven't been able to get a hold of one of the members on the finance committee to confirm that, but we will be going through forecast for 2021, as well as what I'm thinking of for 2022, and we'll be able to give thoughts on that by the time we hit the board meeting in a month.
Perfect.
That's it for me, I believe.
Thank you, Joe.
Unless anyone has questions.
Any questions for Joe?
Doug, it's not so much a question for Joe. Could we back up a step and have a motion to accept the financial statements as presented?
Thank you, Debbie.
Anyone? Steve Geisels, second by John. All in favor? Any opposition? Great, thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Committee report, Joe. You were first up, the finance. I'm assuming that perhaps you covered.
We're going to try and meet next week if the other person's available. And I'm going to ask for other members of the community to be on the finance committee. I should have already probably done that. I haven't yet. I'd like to have 1 or 2 more people from the community on it.
Terrific. Thanks, Joe. Steve, ASC committee update?
Yes, we continue to have a steady stream of new home submissions. We're working steadily on revisions to the standards for residential construction of single-family homes, multifamily dwellings, and a new set of standards for landscaping that would be pulled out of the construction standards because they apply more generally throughout the community. We're very glad that the Carnoustie bioswale situation seems to be headed for a conclusion. We have recently been asked by homeowners to review the situation of the Carnoustie buffers between the single family homes up there and the St. Andrews Green homes. And we're proposing a plan to do that. And we are thinking that a prospective look at Carnoustie would be valuable because we now have the potential for significant multifamily construction activity in the foreseeable future and the need for the restoration of the cleared forest. So we're working on a proposed plan for that you'll hear about in the future.
Anything the board needs to follow up with you on, Steve, relative to that buffer?
Not yet. We're just going to collect information right now.
Okay. Any questions for Steve? Thanks, Steve. Elections Committee, Helen, do you have anything further?
2 very quick things. 1, Debbie, can we please have the SRA board vacancy signs taken down? It'd be so nice to have those taken down. The other thing is that the letter to all the members inviting nominations for the AGM will be going out according to the timetable, as the timetable prescribes, on June 30th. We'll have it ready, and when Lori comes back from holidays, it will go out directly that day. For those of you whose terms are up at the end of 21, please respond quickly and let us know if you that you will be standing for re-election or that you won't. But please do reply as quickly as you can. Thank you very much.
Patricia, communications.
Yes, hello. Just a quick note on regarding the semi-news. You have a copy of the communications channels in there on your packet. I know that the name from Alec needs to be changed in there or updated, but Sylvia made me just a reminder, asked me to remind you guys that I know she is in charge of the semi-news that goes every month, and she requests information from certain specific subjects to certain committees. If you could just please be able to respond to her for the information that you would like to have it on her document by the 25th of the month, that will be highly appreciated, so she can have it all ready for the first week of the month. That's when it's due. On the same note, we're trying to gather statistics and data from the readers, from that main source of communications from the board to our community, to see what people are reading, what they're reading. And so according to that, we probably can modify it and change the way we are doing the process of gathering information from the board to the community. We're also focusing on probably updated information from the website, which is hopefully soon is going to be updated. And that's pretty much it. Nothing major. We're still going through the process of trying to minimize and be very consistent on the semi-news, on what the board needs to convey to the residents. We have determined that right now, we have very limited time before the AGM, which is probably just a couple of months, but people need to be updated on 3 major items, which is financials, which Joyce has been doing a really great job Maintenance is a hot topic lately, and elections, obviously. So we are trying to be consistent, but we are not saying that this is the only thing that we're going to communicate. This is why we're trying to get more information and gather statistics from our residents, how they read, where do they spend time, where are they interested on it. That's pretty much it from our.
Do you want to give an update just on our website meeting?
Oh, indeed, sure. So we have met with our subcontractor. It's a great young man who was also in charge of doing all the mapping for the community. So we have discussions to see of probably revamping our static website. We are going to make it a little bit more welcoming with a little bit more of just enhance it basically visually, and also the interaction what we're going to have. We would like to also remain on probably a 3-click system. Like if you're looking for something, after 3 clicks, you should be able to reach that information that you're looking for. We are eventually trying to also have a portal where only where members can log in and probably going to what Joe was saying, you know, just pay directly our fees or so on and so forth. You know, if that is access from the CIT or CIT bank, that will take us directly from it. So just member only. That's something that is done for different other websites. So you can have information that is on the website that is going to be general for everybody who is in the community or not, who would like to learn a little bit more, like a prospect buyer or so. And just information that is related to your pertinent home or HOA per se, NHOA. So this is where we are. We're looking forward to see what Jacob comes from. He said he's going to start it on the main development pretty soon, and hopefully we'll have something going on. I will estimate probably in a couple of months or so, we can have a good draft and going on with that. Did I miss something?
Any questions? Steve.
I have one. It looks like with the town halls and the AGM and everything that's been going on, there's going to be a big demand for communications over the summer and leading up to the AGM. Do you have the sense that we have enough staff help to be able to do what we need to do, or do we need to be thinking about maybe beefing up a little bit over the summer or something like that?
In my opinion, being understand, I think it's underestimated. I think we definitely need a lot of help, a lot of support to our current staff right now. Communications is a major item that we would like to keep it open. I think is something that the community is expecting from us. I believe we need to have just somebody else that can help us out on that subject. I mean, I know Helen is just doing a lot of work just to put all the information together that to be brought to the office in order for them to keep up with all the stuff besides just communications and all the information. It's just not communications. It's just, you know, maintenance that needs to go out, budgeting needs to go out. It is an understatement to see that we are able to fulfill all that information and not overload our staff.
Any other questions? Okay, then we'll move on. Thank you, Tricia. Safety and security. Jeff, do you want to give us an update as to what to expect here?
Well, our committee has not yet had a second meeting, and I was sort of trying to time that with the appointment of the chair for the, you know, the committee itself, since I'm now chairing the governance committee. And so there's nothing really at this point. The next step was going to be to have a meeting with the Blaine Police Department to resurrect the work that we'd started last year on the Block Watch program. So if it's going to, we're going to have a chairperson here at this meeting, then probably it'd be best to for transitional purposes to have that shoft to the new chair and take it forward. But we probably
Steve,
should.
Do you think that or Jeff, do you think that can wait until next board meeting?
Yeah, that's fine. I probably will want to, because in our charter, we want to meet sort of on a quarterly basis. So since we had our meeting now, it's been just about 2 months ago. I'd probably want to call a meeting in the next few weeks. So perhaps in the next board meeting, we'd have the chairperson, and then I would update on this meeting with the Blaine Police Department on the Block Watch program.
So we don't belabor this meeting. Do you want to perhaps maybe query any of the board members you think that may have an interest in being chairing that committee kind of between now and then, and bring that to the table next board meeting?
I can. That's fine. Just one small other comment. I have had a few other neighborhood associations reach out to me for coordination purposes, as they also address in their various NHOAs security issues, safety and security issues. So just to see what sort of the mothership is thinking about and doing. And so for coordination purposes, one for Prestwick Village, by the way. So, I think that's a good thing, as we all want to have some better coordination and stuff between the NHOAs and the SRA.
Okay, by the way, you might want to recruit Ian Haslam to be on that committee.
Yeah.
From Prestwick. Any questions on safety and security for Jeff? Jeff, should we just go right into governance then?
Okay, so on governance, we gathered this week, I guess it was, with the governance committee, and sort of the main issue for discussion at that meeting was fines and enforcement, and whether or not we need a separate subcommittee. And it was the consensus opinion of the committee members that we probably at this point do not need another committee, so we don't look like France and become too bureaucratic. So we've asked that Debbie and her team, as a start, sort of pull together and synthesize in one document the various fines and fee schedules that we have out there, and sort of get it into one document that the committee will review at the next meeting, as well as make a first cut at a procedures document that will help us be consistent with the application of the various steps needed to enforce these fines and fees. So that was sort of our main issue of discussion. We also took up the issue of that Helen discussed earlier about the board director terms, the repealing of these previous amendments. And so that, just to close that loop. And then the final discussion point was around NHOAs and the coordination with the NHOAs, and which NHOAs are actually functioning and which ones aren't, and so on. And that we would make that an issue of, or a focus for the committee in 2022, given the vast amount of work that we need to do between now and the end of the year. So we have draft minutes from the meeting that I can circulate at some point soon. I just received them from Justine, and we'll do some editing and then send to the committee members, and then we can make that available for the others, so you're all up to date on things.
Debbie, you have a question?
Yes, Jeff, in what you described on defining the process for fining and enforcement, will that coincide with a revision to the covenants in Article 11?
specifically referring to?
That is, the process is laid out in the covenants for the procedure for fining. Is the thought that the covenants would be revised to maybe make that less cumbersome, or just it's something we've been talking about for a while?
Yeah. I think what we need to start with is we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and maybe I can have a side conversation with you in the interest of time here. But I think what we want to do is we want to have some document that's easy to understand for people that we can put on the website. So we don't have to pick through, the covenants and so on, that it's clear about what the steps are. And we agree that we want to make it less cumbersome, so that your job as the, as the sheriff to make sure this is done is easier and clearer. So definitely that would be what our objective would be, ultimate objective.
That's
Debbie, I don't think that there's a need at this point to look at the CCNRs with any amendments. I think it's really just to get it all in one spot so that it's easy to refer to. Any other questions for Jeff? Thanks, Jeff. Maintenance, John and Bill.
Okay, I'll take that one if that's okay with you, John.
Sure, go ahead, Bill.
Okay, the maintenance committee charter was reviewed by a working group about 2 weeks ago, and all of the suggestions that were made at that meeting were incorporated into the copy that's ready for approval at this board meeting. And the environmental committee charter is also was a product of that meeting, and it's ready for approval today as well. The maintenance committee currently has 4 members signed up who will be members as soon as it's officially chartered, which is the minimum requirement for a quorum. So several more members would be desirable so that we can smoothly proceed to having our meetings with an acceptable number of people. I would put out a request for more participation via our communications channels. We'll contact Lori about that. We met, that would be John Palin and I met prior to the board meeting with Debbie and Bruce with an informal working meeting, which we anticipate when the charter is complete will become a regular, presumably monthly meeting of the maintenance committee. And that would follow the normal process for a published meeting open to the residents. And we reviewed Bruce's detailed plans for gates, entryways, and the street sweeper. And there's, I won't go into any details, but there are a lot of, there's been a lot of detailed analysis on Bruce's part to offer recommendations for both the gate maintenance and the street sweeper, which are 2 of the more significant and current and urgent items. And you've heard some of the comments about the the street sweeper process. And he's also, as was reported, making really good progress on the maintenance plan itself. And I'm very encouraged with the process he's following, and I think we can expect some very valuable results in planning on that. John, do you have any comments to add to that?
I think that was pretty much it, Bill. With respect to the sweeper, this part-time employee we are super, super lucky to have access to this individual right now. And it will be very cost effective. I think we will come in significantly under what the planning is for the rest of the year, depending on dump fees and so forth. But as a maintenance group, we're viewing that as a short-term solution. And we'll be formulating some alternatives and recommendations for a long-term approach in the coming months.
Thanks, guys. There's a charter in the copy of the charter in the board package. That charter needs to be adopted by the board. So would entertain a motion to adopt the maintenance committee charter.
So moved.
I so moved.
Thank you, Steve. And Bill, thank you for seconding. Any discussion about the charter? Debbie.
If I could make one suggestion under item 4A, that it currently reads staff maintenance supervisor be changed to director of maintenance operations.
I would what items was that a motion for amendment?
It was just a comment and discussion that be the title be corrected.
Which item was that in, Debbie?
So we amend
number 4A in the charter. The staff maintenance supervisor should read the director of maintenance operations.
Yes.
That's correct.
Is that an amendment, a proposed amendment to the motion?
I would refer to that as a Scrivener's error.
Okay.
Let's not.
Okay. Any other comments about the charter? Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Great, so that's passed with the correction, the Scrivener's error correction. Thank you. Environmental Committee. We don't have, did we appoint a director of to head the committee, or is the Environmental Committee continuing to be a subcommittee of maintenance? What did we decide on that? Bill?
Doug, I believe our intent was to have it as a separate committee. And unless we're running short on board members, my thought was that I might take over that one and remaining on the maintenance committee, but giving the official reins to John. I don't think that'll make a whole lot of difference if John has no objection to that.
So
no objection.
The plan would be that John would take over the maintenance committee. You'd be the director on the maintenance committee or the environmental committee.
That would be the simplest thing, since I've been working both of those issues.
Okay, Debbie, does that need a motion, or Helen, does that need a motion, or can we just make that? Can we make that appointment?
probably for the sake of the minutes, go ahead and make that a motion because they were officially appointed as co-chairs previously.
Okay. So I'll make the motion that that John Palin become the sole director, chairman for the maintenance committee, and that Bill McNally resigns from the maintenance committee chair position, co-chair position, and becomes chairman of the environmental committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And any discussion, folks? Steve.
Clarifying that Bill's going to stay on the maintenance committee as a member.
That is correct. The motion did not remove me from the maintenance committee. It simply, I resigned from chairmanship. So that's correct.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor? And it doesn't appear that there's any opposition. Thanks, guys. So the package also contains the charter for the maintenance committee. Is there a motion to accept the charter for the maintenance committee?
Motion to accept.
And is there a second?
Did we not already do the maintenance committee charter?
No, I'm sorry, the environmental committee charter. Is there a second, Steve? Okay. Any discussion about the charter for the environmental committee? Okay, all in favor? And it looks like there's no opposition. Terrific. Is there any further discussion on the environmental committee, Bill, that you want to report on?
Not at this time.
Terrific.
There is the guidelines for undeveloped lot maintenance under the environmental committee.
That's correct. We'll get to that after the bylaw amendment, adding maintenance in environmental committees.
Okay.
So we'll need a motion to add to the bylaws the maintenance and environmental committees.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Is there a second? Bill, thank you.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? And doesn't look like there's any opposition. Terrific. All right. We can now move to the guidelines for undeveloped lot maintenance. Bill, do you want to talk about that, or yeah, Bill or Jennifer could probably.
I could talk about it if you'd like me to.
Let me just make a preface to that before Jennifer takes over. I noticed that Semiyama was spelled incorrectly in the guidelines for maintenance of undeveloped lots. So that's a scrivener's error.
How embarrassing.
Yes, well, that's... this was also discussed in the working group and it was well received. So it has been looked at by a number of board members. But Jennifer, if you'd like to give a brief summary of it, that would be good.
Okay. I made a few little changes from when we had the working meeting. I changed sort of and you should have gotten those changes from Justine, but I changed the definition of what would be done with trees that someone wanted to remove, because the ASC is now using significant trees as a guideline. So that's what I changed it to, rather than describing the trees by size and so forth. I said significant trees as determined by the ASC, so that it's easier to talk to them about it. And the other thing is that common areas were put in
as something also to be looked at, because in a sense, common areas are undeveloped lots. I mean, sometimes in some places they're landscaped, but not in all. And so that will follow some of the same guidelines. And in particular, some common areas are close enough to the water, for example, in the Erie, where if they do clearing or something in the common areas, the city actually has to be involved because it's under the Shoreline Master Program. So I put that in there too. Otherwise, it's as you saw it.
Is there an expectation that the board adopts these today?
I think that would be very nice, because as fall approaches, that's when we would start asking people to do some things to their lots, especially there are a few lots where things are growing right out into the street. So it would be nice to have it adopted and in place and sent out to residents in advance so that they wouldn't be completely alarmed if they got a notice that something needed to be done.
Fellow board members, are there any concern from you guys with any of these guidelines? Is this something that we need to study with more depth, or?
This is John. I have a couple of comments on this. One, under the guidelines, kind of the second major area towards the bottom of page 1. There's many references that use the word should or should not rather than must or must not. I just want to clarify if that's the intent.
Actually, I changed those all to shall. So I'm not sure which version you guys got in your packet. But when we had that meeting, all the shoulds were changed to shall. And one of the shoulds was changed to must.
Right. Most of the shoulds are still shoulds or should not.
Okay, I think
copy.
You got the old copy then. I have sent the current copy to Justine with all the shalls and the must.
Thank you. One other comment. Under the owners may be asked to maintain their lots for the following reasons. Number 4 is brush that encroaches onto the road. I would perhaps suggest that we include number 5 or expound on number 4 a little bit. Brush that encroaches on public paths as well. There are some places where there's overgrowth that takes up 2/3 of the public path. Is that something we should consider as, that's not undeveloped, but in developed lots?
Yeah, are you talking like of the gravel paths?
The paved path along Drayton Harbor Road, for example.
The lower one down there, or is that
up on the road next to?
Oh, I know where you mean. Yeah, that should go in there because that's like a road. Steve?
Is that under our control, or is that under city control?
Well, the residences are under our control.
For clarification, are you talking about the asphalt path along Drayton Harbor Road that runs parallel to the road, John?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that is a city of Blaine responsibility.
So that would be reported to Blaine Code Compliance, or
Blaine Public Works.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
But John, to your point, we could say something like onto the roads or semi-annual pathways, because there are some places still where people have those little gravel walks, and those are under our control. And if blackberries and things are on those gravel walks, they should be removed, I think. So could we word it to say semi-annual private roads and semi-annual pathways, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
I could put that in there. You guys like that wording?
I'd like to suggest that perhaps what we do is we put this into final form and bring it to the board next board meeting. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think so too, Doug, because there's just too many discrepancies here.
Yeah. Okay. Then let's do that.
Is it possible as well to get I know right now we're looking for feedback on these thoughts and comments, and I'm relatively new to the board for the last couple of months. So one of the things I know that was happening last year was there were comments that people who have undeveloped lots who pay basically half the dues of someone with a developed lot with a house on it. The amount of time that the board spends on those undeveloped lots or committees or staff is significantly higher, and yet they pay less money. So is it possible, because I know in other HOAs, they make you maintain your lots to a specific degree. And I'm looking at the wording we have here, and it's owners of undeveloped lots may be asked to maintain their lots. I know should has been changed to shall. Can we get to a point where for certain types of vegetation that is sitting on properties, we say something to the effect, it has to be removed or taken down to a certain level? There's no may, should, or anything like that?
Joe, that's why we're tabling this to the next board meeting. We intended that be done, that the working group, and we got what amounts to the wrong version here, and it loses the point that you're making.
I will say, Joe, that it would not serve our community well to try to say everyone must maintain their undeveloped lot, no matter what the circumstances or how it looks, or that specific vegetation must be completely removed, because that is how we ended up over the last couple of years with completely scalped lots covered with 6 inches of dead debris that are fire hazards and that nothing will grow on because they were scalped right down to the dirt. And the only thing that comes back when that is done is blackberries, which is what everybody wishes we could say must be removed. But in fact, you cannot remove blackberries from something that you're not going to landscape. So that's why we wanted to say may be asked, but if they are asked, then they shall follow the guidelines.
Okay, because, and I understand exactly what you're saying, Jennifer. The one thing I hear periodically is, why does that person who owns that lot not have to do certain better types of maintenance than another person who has that lot, because that person over there's lot looks like total crap with total vegetation all over the place. It's a big mishmash, whereas other people have it done nicely. I know what you're saying, but there are some lots around here that just look like quote unquote pieces of garbage compared to other lots, and it's got nothing to do with a 10-foot buffer. Anyways, that's all I wanted to ask.
Steve?
Well, to expand a little bit on Joe's concern, we do need guidance as to how intense the monitoring of such standards should be, how intense the board wants to be about monitoring and insisting on things being done. And this is going to get bigger because we have no standards for developed lots, no written standards for developed lots, and increasing needs to assure that they're being properly maintained, particularly with regard to stormwater facilities. We're going to have that discussion. I have a feeling that's a 2022 issue, given everything else on our plate. But the ASC will be coming back to the board for guidance on that issue.
Yeah, and I think that the committee can beat these things up and bring a guideline document back in the following month that will be, I think, probably ready for our review. Okay.
I mean, one of the things we could do is get feedback at town halls. Just say, this is one of the things we're looking for feedback on, you know, in a couple of months, and maybe bring it as an item for an AGM, just chatter about whatever types of things has happened, because the more that undeveloped lots are left just in their natural state, with many people get more and more pissed off.
It's not a bad idea, Joe. Moving along, update on the office IT progress. John?
Excuse me, Doug?
Yes.
We have a executive session scheduled about 15 minutes ago. Did you want to try to get through the remainder of the agenda?
Yeah, I was going to try and do that so that we could dedicate what time we needed to the executive session, so we didn't just have everybody else that's on the thing hanging out. So let's just quickly get through this. I think we only have a couple more minutes of stuff that really takes. John, you want to give us an IT update?
Sure. We've been working with Patricia and Debbie on this whole matter, and I think we have a plan in place that we're about ready to begin executing on. We're going to come in for this calendar year well under the 11,000 budget authorization. Currently, it's looking more like, I forget the number off the top of my head, 6,500 or so. And that will that is for some network hardware, for some moving our domain registration to a different provider, some antivirus stuff, upgrading Windows licenses to Windows 10 Pro, and moving to the cloud with Office 365 and what's called Azure Active Directory, which will give us cloud shared storage services. That also includes Office 365 and Azure AD licenses for board members as a part of that price, which was one of the requests from our president and others, I believe. That particular amount is about $600 some this year and $1,200 next year. It includes some implementation consulting services from an individual, and it also includes replacement and upgrade of the Office copier and a couple of color printers. This may go up a few $1,000s based on some additional hardware that has not yet been identified, particularly a new laptop for the Director of Maintenance Operations, and potentially another device or two, but it would not be a significant expense. The other point is the ongoing operational cost. The Office and shared cloud storage licenses are a subscription-based product, and the ongoing costs will be about $4,400 a year, something like that, assuming that all board members are licensed for an SRA email account. If not, we could save a little bit of money there. Patricia, did I leave anything out?
No, you're pretty much on time. And Joe, to your answer, yes, we do not need an elaborated laptop on that, but I would not like to put a number until all the assessment is done after the first implementation on the offices and the building. According to that, we can probably schedule a 5-year plan of, when and how we can change and upgrade all the hardware that is in there. I know they're in time and due to a major upgrade, but it will get done with a plan, and all the recommendations will be done probably, hopefully, by the next month.
And on behalf of the staff and myself, thank you very much, John and Patricia, for all your support and help on this. We really appreciate it.
Right.
Welcome.
A quick update on Jacob Lee on the map and the website. I think we talked enough about the website. I'll just say that the mapping is the thing that really kind of drove the website change. So that's going to be plugged in, and hopefully in a couple months we'll have a new website.
So Doug, can I ask you a question? So if we're going to be doing a new website with Jake, should I be putting in more money in a budget? Because Jake at the beginning of the year was never planned at all. So should we be putting in more money for him to revamp or redo or do some stuff to the website? And if so, can you tell me how much it might be sometime offline?
He indicated to us that that was included in his contract to get the website up and operating with his plugin working. So that should be in his contract.
Well, he bills by the hour. So if he's still going to put in time, it may be under the auspices of the contract, but I don't think we capped it at a certain amount and he's at that certain amount. So are you suggesting, I'm not saying it should be or shouldn't be, are you suggesting that it'll be quote unquote free if we're paying him by the hour?
It was my understanding it was in the scope of services in that last agreement, and it was paid for, and we were just holding the $2,000 till it was completed.
Okay, if that's the case, great.
That's my impression, but we should
we'll
probably confirm that with Jake.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to leave this board of director meeting times until after our executive session. Then we have one more resolution here to discuss, and that is the removal of the primary company banking administration. You want to just give us the background on that, Joe? And
I didn't bring it forward, but I believe that this is, I think the board prior to me going on the board had Jennifer as the primary banking contact person.
Right.
And of course, as she's gone as of March 31st, she shouldn't be the primary contact. So is this to remove her?
This is the resolution to remove her, correct?
Remove her because she's not with the board anymore?
And it also appoints the treasurer to take custody and responsibility for funds and securities, et cetera.
Okay. So then would it be appropriate for me, can someone make a motion to remove Jennifer, not Jennifer Plumbon, the other Jennifer from Joint Partners as the banking administrator for the SRA?
I'll make a motion to adopt board resolution 2021-06-1701, a resolution for board removal of primary company banking administrator. That was in our package.
Yep.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Is there any discussion about this? This is really more of a formality. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Passed. Terrific. All right. We'll talk about the sea smoke track as well after our executive session. So why don't we go to our executive session now? Debbie, do you want to just, for everybody that's kind of holding on out there, do you want to give us just a quick update as to, so that they understand what we're going into executive session for?
We will be speaking to a resident who was invited to a hearing. We will be considering other fines and a new non-compliance reported by the AFC, payment of a fine, and then an ongoing issue with a resident that is legally based.
Okay, so let's go into executive session.
Okay, I'm going to start moving residents into the waiting room. Ms. Gill has indicated to me that she is at work, and because of the delay, she may not have the time to give this that she would like, and she is asking if we could reschedule based on this delay.
I'm okay doing it right now.
But I'm going to start, before you guys discuss, let me start moving others into the waiting room. Sorry.
In executive session, do we stop recording?
fine. On the second issue, the owners were not able to attend the hearing, and the board voted to uphold the recommendation of a fine that is split between the two owners who own the property. On the issue of an owner who's in non-compliance, the board supported the recommendation of a fine, and we will now move forward with scheduling a hearing. On the issue of a fine that had been imposed, actually 2 fines that had been imposed, those have been paid and the property has been sold and there are new owners. And the third is the issue of a directive from the board to an owner who has not complied to move the issue to the appropriate authority for resolution.
Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome.
Remaining on the agenda is a discussion about the Sea Smoke Tract D. As you all know, I sent a note out. We were asked to consider if there would be anything that Semiahmoo would do relative to exchange or trade or outright purchase of tracts D and E of Sea Smoke, and that is the property that lies between the entrance road that parallels Semiahmoo Drive, going down to about where that barrier is at the end of the entrance to Sea Smoke. So it also includes the bioswale for Sea Smoke, the current bioswale, and we're not quite sure what the size is. It's a little over an acre. It might be as much as 2 acres, which is what they had indicated, but we don't have an actual calculation as what the size is. So the question becomes, is that a piece of property that the board believes is important relative to that intersection? And if the SRA did acquire either the easement, exclusivity of use, or actually acquired that, would that be something that we'd want to put possibly some kind of an amenity in there, for example, like a playground or some kind of a park? So when I sent that out, I asked you all to kind of put your thinking caps on to see what you might think about that. I assume that probably everybody's gone by and looked at it. I think that intersection is a critical intersection. It's a big intersection, and it makes the statement about Semiahmoo. It's the front gate to the resort and the spit. It's really a kind of a high-profile property. So, your thoughts? John.
The original declaration says it's intended to be open space, and that SRA will support and assist at no cost to SRA the developer's efforts to maintain it as such. So I think it would be misguided for us to take over that property.
Debbie, what else in the developer agreement is there that the board should be aware of?
Okay, that first and foremost, that Sea Smoke CC&Rs are binding upon all lots, tracts, and units within the property except Tract A and C, which obviously most know we are located on Tract A, but there's future development there. That we're responsible for the roads for phase 1, and that commences after the completion of construction activity on the housing units, so that heavy construction vehicles will no longer use those portions on the roads, and after MCOG repairs such road portions as deemed to be satisfactory by the city. And then upon completion of the phase, SRA will be responsible for maintenance of the gate, the signs, and landscaping related irrigation outside the gate. And SRA is to be responsible for the maintenance of the stormwater facility within the residential portions of Sea Smoke, and that's all the property other than Tract A and J. and that will provide needed snow removal. I'd like to say snow plowing and road sweeping on the roads with the residential portions of Sea Smoke. That SRA assessments for each housing unit shall commence upon the issuance of the City of Blaine of a final certificate of occupancy. And on page 7, track D, Doug, I was told that the track D parcel is 1.26 acres, but to your point, that's the best we know. And John already referenced that that they would be looking for SRA support at no cost to maintain that as an open space. In the agreement, the city did not step up and accept that as a park, and that Tract E, MCOV has provided the SRA with the R&M manual for the stormwater treatment facility. So those were the key things that I picked out of the agreement to mention to the board.
So when we met with them, they indicated that they had development rights for 8 units on that, and according to the development agreement, it says it must remain in open space. Correct?
Unless the city did not accept for a park, that they did have an allowance to turn that into residential, was my understanding, Doug. So my impression was they were coming to the SRA saying, okay, the city didn't accept, we have this parcel, we're providing you with, you know, an option, and if not, it sounded to me like they were going to figure out how to configure that for residential purposes like you just mentioned.
Yeah.
No, I was just clarifying, Debbie. So you stated that the City of Blaine, there was an application, sort of like a formal request that area be developed into a park, and the City of Blaine rejected that?
They had a timeline, Jeff, was my understanding. I believe it was approximately 18 months from the time of platting that they could exercise that option. And so obviously with this agreement being written in 2016, that option has long since expired, was my understanding.
Is it worth, you know, revisiting that? Because so much has changed between now and then. I would wonder why. I guess the City of Blaine wants the revenue from the 8 units that they could potentially put there, but that would be destructive in my viewpoint. I'm already concerned as a homeowner in Simiamu with the development, the overdevelopment. Pretty soon we're not going to have any green space left. So, you know, I would see if we could revisit it since it's been so long ago with the City of Blaine first.
And Doug, I don't recall them making any comment about that they've reached out to the city at any point. Do you?
What's their motivation here? What are they trying to do? They just don't want to deal with this. It's just kind of a pain for them.
I think what their motivation is trying to get some value out of it. When we had the discussion, there was no discussion about this was required to be maintained as open space. And Debbie, I think we need to go back to them and ask them specifically, you know, why they're coming to us to acquire this. John?
That's a good question, but I believe that if it was truly developable, as you just said, they're trying to get some value out of this. So if it's worth more to the developer to get some reduced ASC costs as they're proposing, that means the property is really not developable in that tract. And I think we would be better served by letting them keep it as open space. The developer can file a zoning change to have it be open space so that they can get out from under the property tax basis of it. Simiamu Shore has done something recently. We acquired, in conjunction with Beachwalker, a tract that was zoned and actually planned for 16 units, and the local NHOAs bought it to keep it as open space and have filed to have it be officially open space to get out from under the tax liability for it. So I think we should let the developer do it.
Well, I think we need to find out if that's accurate. So the accuracy of the information before we make a decision is critical.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. Because if they actually, if we rebuff them and if we rebuff them and they actually do have development rights, the next thing you know, you're going to see lots getting cleared.
Yeah. Steve, may I interrupt for just a moment on that point? In the SRA agreement, in the event that the City of Blaine does not acquire all or part of Tract D as public park, MCOG may develop Tract D as residential housing, subject to the approval of the City of Blaine in accordance with the CC&Rs provided herein. In such event, MCOG shall buffer the remainder of Tract D in a manner similar to described in section 4 above. Razor Home agrees not to pursue commercial development on Tract D. So that was the remainder of the agreement, if the city did not accept it as a park.
I think there's a certain amount of due diligence that would be required. And one of the things is the question of whether they have found out something about that piece of land that does make it undevelopable or problematic in some other way.
Or just economics.
But there's a reason that they don't want the land, and we need to understand that.
Doug, if I may, I reached out to a local realtor just out of curiosity, you know, what would be the speculation on the value of that property. And the realtor knows the developer and the representative quite well, and said that they would be willing to help the SRA if we so wanted help on real estate values and such. So just so you're aware of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, you know, looking at the property, unless there's some infrastructure issues relative to like sanitary sewer or something like that, I mean, the property definitely looks developable, and there is a buffer along the edge of it, like there is on the rest of that. But I don't see why there wouldn't be a development issue. Obviously, we should try and determine that with the city, but and with the discussion with the developer. But I think if we don't take action, we can expect that we'll see 8 units built on that property. So the question becomes: is 8 units on that property right there something that's going to be a big enough distraction that we're going to wish that we had not made the decision? Or is it something downstream, you know, 10 years from now, we're going to look at that and be happy that we have it because we now have a lot more kids in the neighborhood that we can build a park for? I mean, there's just a lot of things to really think about on it. You know, you don't get an opportunity to preserve a piece of property that's a strategic piece of property frequently. Bill?
You're muted, Bill.
Sorry. Looking at the drawing you sent us of the corner there, Tract E, there is no open space buffer shown on the sides of the track that abut the Semiahmoo Parkway and Semiahmoo Drive.
There are, Bill. It's called Tract H.
Yeah, Tract H.
Am I looking at the wrong one? Apparently.
No. H is all the buffer.
And it's a 20-foot buffer.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my simple worries is, from my view of being on the board for only a couple of months, living in this community for 15 years or whatever, there's a lot of areas of our community that are being managed, maintained, whatever, by the SRA staff. And in recent past, it's questionable about the quality of maintenance that's been happening on the properties that we currently have to manage. And if we are to add a new property to manage, maintain, and Doug's saying maybe put in a path and maybe, you know, stuff for a kid's playground, etc. That's a very raw piece of property with a bunch of trees, bushes, etc. That's going to be a bunch more money that's going to be in the community for us to maintain, manage, etc. So if we're doing a shoddy job in the recent past of managing, all I'm thinking of, there's going to be more management and maintenance necessary, which is more and more dollars. I understand green spaces, but I also understand costs to maintain green spaces is not trivial. That's just my 2 bits as a finance person, which you probably expect.
And I agree. Right now, we have obviously some issues with maintenance and keeping up with the landscaping and whatnot. But I also think reflect back to Doug's comments that, you know, that's a short-term issue we're dealing with right now. Probably not something we're going to be dealing with. Hopefully not dealing with that a year from now. So I don't want the short-term issues we're having to impact long-term decisions, because this is a long-term, right? Yeah. That if we can get this for a reasonable amount, and I'm not even necessarily thinking about a park, I'm just thinking about no development, right? So more along the lines of, you know, just low cut, you know, a low cut lot, really not really meant for kids running around and playing in it, unless we want to go and take on that expense. Just keep it kind of open space. But if it's unreasonable, the cost to acquire, then, you know, that's a whole new story, because I haven't heard anybody say what the actual cost would be.
And they haven't given us an estimate of what the cost would be. They did say, well, maybe we could exchange it for development fees that ASC is going to charge us, or something like that. It was a very soft and very kind of open-ended offer. And so, so I guess what we need to do is, on a going forward basis, is let's determine what we can do. What is in the agreement, and let's get the city's response to it, and then go back to the developer and ask them a little bit more. If you put 8 units on that small piece of property, that will be in your face, just like the rest of Seasmoke is currently. So I just think it's something that we don't want to take too lightly and just not really give it some good thought. And, you know, we should talk to some other people in the community to make sure that we get some good grounding there, because, you know, it's a high profile property, and we've seen what's been built there, and, you know, it's very exposed. It's very much in your face currently. Now, obviously, that landscaping buffers will grow up and they will screen it, but you know, there we are.
I agree, Doug. I just think we need to also get the costs, even a preliminary or, you know, approximate. What would that, you know, cost us, to give us an idea, because I don't think anyone has an idea. That'll also help with the decision making. So we should pursue that on 2 different tracks, probably, maybe through Debbie's channel and then in discussions with the developer.
Yeah. And I would encourage each of us to try and talk to as many people as you can about it, to just get some real input from the community. You know, just get some opinions. Yep. I don't know what kind of time we have, but we'll find that out. Patricia, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I do not go to that area that often, but Debbie, have you seen any surveyors or people that have been in that area doing some studying lately or in the past month or so?
You know, to and from work and such, I haven't noticed any activity. No.
They did say that they're getting ready to go to the next phase of development in Seasmoke. So I'm
just wondering if they did some preliminary studies, and the results of that made him, you know, make such proposal to us. I don't know, just a thought. But.
Well, we're talking about the same developer that we negotiated with for the parcel that they're on currently, and we know that came with a pretty hefty price tag. So,
correct.
I think if I heard Jeff say, you know, if I want to pursue the avenue I mentioned earlier, I think that I will be doing that. So, okay.
Any more discussion on that?
I would just comment that that side of the intersection where Tract D primarily is the less traveled side. It's not on Semiahmoo Parkway. There is one edge that is on there, but their bioswale is taking up a good chunk of the portion that faces Semiahmoo Parkway. And I think the visual distraction being along Semiahmoo Drive there is less significant than most of Sea Smoke.
Yeah, you're right. The bioswale does create a big portion of that corner, and I don't believe they could actually. What they had indicated to us is that they would probably put two little cul-de-sacs in with 4 homes around each of those cul-de-sacs. So they total of 8, and so it probably won't actually hit on the corner, but it would probably wrap around the bioswale.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll do some more digging, and we'll talk about it between now and our next board meeting, and go from there. All right. The last thing on our agenda is newsletter resident outreach from Fire Chief. Debbie, do you want to give us an idea of what that's?
There's, as it says in the binder. Excuse me, just one moment here. That they're wanting to get accurate information out to the residents on the, I'm sorry, I lost my place here for just a second. The fire chief would, while I'm looking for that, the fire chief would like to attend next month's board meeting, and I think that that's a positive thing to interact with the fire chief. And I do apologize that the
this is about Proposition 2021-3 levy.
Yes, and I'm sure that they're wanting to get the word out to support for continued services and such. And in the course of Justine talking with them, I think one of the things that was mentioned is, you know, the thought of reopening or opening the fire station on the Parkway, which obviously would be very beneficial to the Semiahmoo community. And so I do apologize that I'm not that in my binder. Justine, thank you.
Would you want me to take this? Okay. When I talked with Jason Vanderveen, he asked that we as a board get together with him or have him come and speak with the board so that he can give you guys the information to give proper information to our community on this 2021-3 levy lid lift so that we can get qualified fire department reopened or opened, and emergency medical staff here, which they are hoping that with this getting passed in August, that it will reopen our fire department and also have an emergency vehicle there with 12-hour shifts.
So the election is August 3rd, correct?
Correct.
So if we have our board meeting on July, what do we say, 22nd? Mm-hmm. that doesn't give us a lot of time to get information out to the community. So I guess I would love to have the fire chief come in and give us a briefing at our meeting. Perhaps if they can forward some information to us in advance, we can kind of take a look at it and see if I don't know why we wouldn't want to put it in some of our communications that go out.
Yes, and Fire Chief Vanderveen has been very accommodating, and if we want more information, he is definitely more than willing to give us that information. But he
and I'm sure the community will want to know too.
Yeah, he did want to be at this meeting today, but we already knew that it was going to be a long meeting, and timing wise, we didn't know when to put him into this meeting.
Steve,
there's plenty of information in the packet. Am I muted?
No.
There's plenty of information in the packet.
Mm-hmm.
Which seems to be missing from
why don't we just distribute it?
Steve, I was thinking along that line, but I was going to ask Patricia if you would be entertained looking at something that he would like to be distributed via our lines of communication here at the SRA.
Indeed, I was just going to suggest that, and also for the next announcement for our next meeting, if the fire chief is going to invite it, I will encourage also all members to tune in into the next BOD to get a personal information about that, or one-to-one ask questions on the brief time that he'll be allowed.
Joe?
From reading what's on our board package on page 52 and 53, I don't see anywhere in here where it says that they're going to staff up the fire station right across on Semiahmoo Parkway. All I see, or what I do see, is that they're going to replace a bunch of fire equipment and they're going to add some more firemen, or fire people, sorry. Unless I'm reading it wrong, or unless I'm not reading something. So from my perspective, you know, getting an up-to-date set of fire equipment in our community, I'm not saying Semiahmoo, but I'm just saying in North Whatcom, is a necessary thing as taxpayers. We need to have fire equipment that you can count on, a couple of more fire people if that's necessary. From our perspective in Semiahmoo, I would think that having someone or that fire station staff, considering it's built, is very desirable and will make it a selling point to the community as opposed to just North Whatcom. But I just don't see it in here.
So I would expect that they've got some kind of promotional material, something that's a little bit more than what they've got here. We should ask them to provide those to us, and then our communications committee can pass those on through our channels.
Perfect.
That makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. That's the last item of business. Did we cover that one thoroughly enough, Justine and Debbie?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Then at that, we will close the session. So thanks, everybody, for being here. And sorry that it went again 4 hours. Next time, let's try and keep it.
Not even quite.
Not quite. Next time, we'll try and keep it down.
Round it up, Joe, after 4 and 3.5.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
and
you.
Jane, welcome to the board.
Yeah, welcome, Jane.
Thank you.
Welcome, Jane.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.